here to talk to you about the future of human factors in aviation. Did you know that human factors has been a subject of study in the aviation industry since the First and Second World War? However, the focus has shifted greatly with the advent of new technologies. In 1972, Professor Edwards came up with the SHEL model, that's S-H-E-L, and it stands for Software, Hardware, Environment and Liveware, and it focuses on the interactions between the four elements. The model can also be modified to include a C for culture and an extra L for the second liveware when you have more than one crew member. This model was a new way of looking at things. Before, it was a matter of who did what wrong, but this model was looking at why they did it and the interactions that caused the event. It crashed. The hierarchy in the cockpit was evident when the captain didn't listen to the first officer's worries and also those of the flight engineer behind him. There was also a language barrier between the air traffic controllers and the pilots of the plane. In 1990, the Reason model was published by James Reason. Often called the Swiss cheese model, it looks at multiple levels of failure. Organisational influences, unsafe supervision, preconditions for unsafe acts, and the unsafe acts themselves. When weaknesses align, there is room for error. An example of human factors at many levels being in play was the Uberlin disaster in 2004. In this accident, there was a mid-air collision between a Russian passenger jet and a DHL 747 cargo plane from Bahrain. In this accident, the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, was still a relatively new technology and was fitted to both aircraft. The two aircraft were on a collision course, and the TCAS activated by telling the Russian plane to descend and the 747 to climb. However, the air traffic controller on duty at the time realised the situation at the very last minute and told the 747 to also descend, putting them on a collision course, resulting in the deaths of 71 people, mostly children. The disaster was not only a result of poor use of a new technology, but it also displayed latent and organisational factors in the air traffic control system. Peter Nielsen was the only air traffic controller on duty at the time, and his co-worker was on a rest break. Rest breaks were not a standard procedure, however, they were known and accepted by management. He was working at two stations and was distracted by another incident with another aircraft at the same time. He also had non-standard equipment due to maintenance. All of these are organisational and preconditioning factors for the crash.
The hunt begins for a scapegoat. If two planes collide in empty skies, someone must be to blame. At first, some suspect the Russians.
The pilot of the Russian plane is said to have ignored repeated instructions from air traffic controllers.
And while the repeatedly they contacted the Russian pilot and asked him to change altitude because he was flying at a level where he should not have been. Now, the Russian pilot never responded to those warnings from air traffic control.
The Russian pilots, particularly in Soviet times and also now, but to a lesser extent, were extremely well trained. I have no concerns about the training of pilots. They've been trained for almost every operational possibility that could happen.
Why did the TCAS device meant to avoid collisions, in this case maybe help cause one?
And why didn't the Russian plane descend when first ordered? A language problem? Controller commands are always in English.
I knew everybody from that crew. Everybody knew English enough to speak with controller.
So who is to blame? The media spotlight now falls on controller Peter Nielsen. He was the man who'd guided the two planes towards each other. They were under his control. He must have caused them to collide.
I was as shocked as I could have been with any other name or any other colleague. I was just very sorry for him. The media coverage about the incident very often makes you angry because these statements are taken out of context.
And what more do we know about this Swiss controller at the centre of the investigation?
He was chased by the media. He was accused of being a murderer.
He's the man, obviously, everyone wants to talk to, but at the moment the Swiss say he's in no position to talk, and we heard today that the Swiss authorities have opened an investigation to see whether there's enough evidence for charges of manslaughter.
Meanwhile, that investigation is underway, headed by Germany's air crash detectives, the BFU.
So with many more new technology and cultural factors than ever before in aviation, what is the future of aviation? Adam will take us through the technological aspects, and then Toby will take us through the cultural. Thank you.
Many people think of automated systems in aviation as being a new and high-tech development, but did you know that autopilots have been in use for over a century? The first autopilot was actually used in 1912, permitting a plane to fly straight and level along a compass heading. The next significant milestone in autopilot technology came in 1947 when a US Air Force C-54 successfully took off, cruised across the Atlantic and landed at an Air Force base entirely under the control of an autopilot. In April this year, the UK Astro program successfully managed to remote control an Jetstream aircraft from the ground, flying 500 miles from Lancashire to Inverness. The aircraft was entirely under control of computers on the ground and only had a crew in the cockpit as a legal precautionary measure. And takeoffs and landings were done with pilots at the controls due to the laws. However, the computer had been successfully tested that it could do this procedure before, so in theory the plane could be flown the entire flight without humans. In their book, Human Factors of Remotely Operated Vehicles, the authors, drawing from a large range of professional experiences, said it is a fallacy that automation replaces humans. Some people believe that these kind of developments will lead to the phasing out of pilots entirely from commercial operations. Based on years of experience with drone aircraft, this seems extremely unlikely. Oversight. Many mishaps have been attributed to the human being out of the loop in what is happening. As an example of this, US manned naval aviation has a mishap rate of 2 mishaps per 100,000 hours flown, while the Pioneer UAV program has a Class A mishap rate of 385 mishaps per 100,000 hours flown. This large mishap rate is only allowed due to the fact that there are no humans on board the aircraft. If they were carrying people, they would not be allowed to fly purely under the computer control. With both pilots and automated systems being here to stay, the question must therefore become on how to best balance the best aspects of humans and automated systems, and how to counteract each of their weaknesses. To look at this, we'll look at some accidents that have been caused due to reliance on automated systems and human factors not keeping up with them, and how human factors focus may change in the future to deal with this. The flights of QF-32 showed the benefits and downsides of high-tech onboard systems after an uncontrolled engine failure occurred. The onboard ECAM system provided a list of errors to work through, while the landing computer was able to take the available information and calculate landing distance needed. The computer systems were quickly able to make assessments based on the available information, but their information wasn't all correct. The flight only successfully landed due to the experience of the crew on board and their ability to use alternate information sources and make educated guesses as to the aircraft's state, due to knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the automated systems. In contrast, the crash of Air France Flight 447 in 2009 is widely regarded as being due to the inexperienced pilots of the controls not understanding the aircraft's systems and becoming overwhelmed with the situation as a result. In the accident, the automated systems behaved exactly as intended and as they were designed, and the situation was recoverable if the humans involved had known how to deal with the problem. Technology provides increased opportunities for training in new ways. Difficult scenarios can be realistically simulated in safe ways, and this means that many organisations are switching to human factors models that accept mistakes will happen and focus on how to deal with and correct those mistakes as much as preventing them in the first place.
In this case, the pilots were too worried about the computers and what the displays were showing and what the computer readouts were showing, and it ended up costing the tragic lives of many people, and it didn't need to happen because it was a perfectly good airplane that the crew inadvertently flew into the water.
A CASA report says, human factors training should focus on providing aviation safety critical personnel with the non-technical skills to manage the prevention and consequences of human error. This implies that making errors is normal and expected. The consequences of error are just as important as the causes. This is just a small sample of the ways in which human factors continue to adapt to new technologies, and going forward it is clear that this will continue.
Predicting the future is never easy, but our group feels that one of the key issues that will affect human factors in the aviation industry will be cultural diversity. In today's age, as countries, businesses and people are becoming ever more integrated with tools such as the World Wide Web, it will be essential in the future for the aviation industry to build cultural awareness in differences in customs and ideology. In the future, as airlines expand into different countries, it will allow them to employ a more diverse workforce. There are many problems which arise when we have a diverse workforce, as we tend to define others by our own cultural values and what we consider the right way to do things. With businesses operating outside their home countries, it has been found that a country's success largely depends on its willingness to embrace the new culture and to adapt their businesses around it. As in the past in Australia, white males have been the majority of the flight crew, and education and training programs have been built around this. We believe that to assume this to continue in the future will no longer be an effective way to train and educate our flight crew. Another major problem associating the future of human factors relating to cultural diversity will be miscommunication.
Speaking. But we're still sitting here. We still have the problem that the tower is speaking mainly Spanish and I'm speaking mainly English. My Spanish is not good enough to find out what the problem is, and the English of the tower isn't good enough to tell me where the problem exactly is. So I can't really tell you what the problem is. I asked Frankfurt, the Condor staff in Frankfurt, to send a new flight plan, a second flight plan, which is also in the system now, but that did not help. So I have no idea what the problem is, but I can assure you that we are working on the problem, and we're trying to solve whatever the problem here is, which is hard as long as we don't know where the problem lies. So I have to beg you for some more patience. Thank you.
The interpretation and comprehension of the English language can differ greatly from country to country. This has long been an issue in the aviation industry because many accidents, including the worst aviation accident in history, occurred because of communication issues. On March 27, 1977, Spanish air traffic controllers and a Dutch pilot, both speaking English, failed to communicate critical information with each other, resulting in 583 deaths. Although ICAO has introduced the English language proficiency requirements, which many countries have adopted, there is still a problem of non-standardized English being used, meaning that accents and dialects are interfering with the communication process. In the future, as cockpits become ever more diverse, this problem is only set to rise. The solution must lie in a more standard English being taught worldwide. Achieving this, though, will be one of the harder problems for the industry in the future.
Manuel, there is too much butter on those trays. There is too much butter on those trays.
No, senor. What? Not on those trays. No, sir. Uno, dos, tres.
No. I'm mucho burro Ali. Okay? I'm mucho burro Ali.
Ah, mantequilla.
What?
Okay? Mantequilla. Burro is Burro.
Manuel, por favor, momento.
Sí.
Nothing, dear, I'm just dealing with it.
He speak good, how you say?
English.
Mantequilla. Solamente dos.
Dos.
Well, don't look at me. You're the one who's supposed to be able to speak it.
2 pieces. 2 each. Arriba!